Hi, we're going to be talking about how we as academic librarians are important in the strategic role of enhancing university rankings. Devin and I worked on this project over the past year and are excited to share it with you. So the importance of university rankings, they affect funding, faculty recruitment and retention, domestic and international enrollment, reputation, among others. All those things impact funding as well. So rankings are certainly very important, and the various rankings agencies use bibliometrics to determine their rankings. So where do academic librarians come in? We're uniquely positioned to help universities with the work of impacting rankings. We're very familiar with bibliometrics, which are used by rankings agencies as a proxy for researcher productivity. And this core competency really helps us impact those metrics. So we can help with specific things like name and address disambiguation, cataloging publications, citation analysis, and record cleanup and maintenance. And all those things together can help impact rankings. So how did FSU conceive of this project, and how did it get funded and start? So in 2019, the library conducted a feasibility study that was shown that it could have some impact on rankings. Uh, that study wasn't fully implemented until 2021 when we did a pilot project with 10 high output faculty. That was partly due to a new university president and provost coming in and an increased emphasis on rankings here at FSU. In 2022, we put a funding request into the provost office that was approved in 2023 when we also procured some citation analysis tools, and the research impact librarian was recruited, which is me. I came in late 2023. 2024, we hired about 5 analysts to help with this project, and we implemented and completed the data remediation project. So we'll talk about the BDR project now. The goal for this was to ensure that FSU's bibliometrics in Scopus and Web of Science are as accurate as possible. Scopus and Web of Science are the main systems that rankings agencies use to gather bibliometrics for their rankings. And the purpose of this project was to improve FSU's performance on the AAU citations indicator and for various rankings. So the project had two strategies: name unification and author profile remediation. Name unification was correcting publications that should be credited toward FSU but aren't due to misspellings, publisher errors, algorithmic errors, or any other mistake along the process of publishing any sort of research output. Generally, that is journal articles. Those are the main things that are counted towards bibliometrics in those rankings. Uh, Name unification is more impactful than author profile remediation and less time consuming. We'll talk about that a little more later, why that is. Uh, so author profile remediation consists of fixing individual FSU author profiles in Web of Science and Scopus to more accurately reflect their research outputs. It's a very time-consuming process that is kind of dependent on which system you're in, and it contains a indirect or minimal impact on overall institutional bibliometrics. And again, we'll get into that later when we talk about author profile remediation. But first, we're going to talk about the name unification process. So on this slide, you can see these arrows point to uh, a center here at FSU, the Center for Ocean and Atmospheric Prediction Studies. Uh, as you can see on the slides, they don't list Florida State University as part of their uh, as part of the process in the system. The authors who are part of co-ops are only listed as co-ops and not as part of FSU. That is a mistake and something that should be corrected in the system to ensure that FSU is getting credit for those published outputs. If FSU is not getting credit for those outputs, that could also mean somewhere along the way the author might not get credit. So it's a beneficial process for everyone along the way to get credit. On the left side of the slide, you'll see some interesting name unification errors. So this is in Scopus IPW system, uh, where we went in to review some documents and document clusters, but you'll see that people will write or misspell Florida State University. There's a listing that includes Florida State University College of Medicine in Canada for whatever reason, or you'll have other things in other locations. Generally, those are address mistakes and other things we can correct in the system. So we'll go on and talk about each system individually. You can see the impact we had in Web of Science. We added 1,500 documents, and of those 1,500 documents, about 9,000 citations, which was a really nice increase, an increase of almost 9% over the period 2018 to 2022, and an increase of 4.3% in the citations in that same period. Web of Science was a little easier to remediate. They sent us a list of addresses in the Tallahassee area, and we went through those addresses and sent back which ones were affiliated with FSU, and they were able to remediate those for us. So that was a simpler process than just, straightforwardly going through author profiles, which can be time consuming. And then we'll talk about Scopus next, which was a little different. So we added almost 600 documents in Scopus, 3.5% increase in that 2018-2022 time period. Those documents in Scopus were more highly cited. So almost 20,000 citations there, 1,900, 800, 777, which is an increase of almost 6% in that period. Scopus, we had to do things a little differently. They have an internal profile wizard that we found a few documents that way, sort of picked up a few low-hanging fruit there. And then we also went through and did some classic library work, doing some advanced searching to find documents that were not affiliated with FSU in their system, but that should have been. Then we also used an API to find documents that way as well. So that was we had to use a few different methods in Scopus in a way we didn't really have to in Web of Science. We'll move on to author profiles now and talk about how those are a little different. So author profiles, this is a screenshot of several author profiles in Web of Science. Uh, Web of Science is a bit messier in some respects, especially with author profiles compared to Scopus. You can see here there's at least 6 author profiles here that have documents that contain publications by Todd Adams here at FSU. You know, ideally each author should have one profile that contains all of their documents. Uh, what we found with author profiles, however, is that when remediating and trying to fix author profiles so that, each profile contains all of their research outputs in one place, that didn't impact overall institutional bibliometrics. So an author could have something credited to someone else, but it's still being counted towards FSU. So FSU is still getting credit for that publication, though the author isn't. And then Devin will talk about one way to fix that later. So the impact we had on author profiles, I mentioned that Web of Science author profiles were pretty messy. Documents are misattributed, but again, as I mentioned, that doesn't necessarily mean they're attributed to the wrong institution. But it can still help FSU researchers or any other school by making their information clean and accurate. So you can see we remediated over 220 author profiles in Web of Science. And then that impact was even more impressive if you look at the citations. A lot of that is due to highly cited authors in the College of Engineering and the College of Arts and Sciences, especially physics is a field where they publish quite often and have a lot of citations. Elsevier's algorithm is better for author profiles. That's the Scopus system. There were many fewer profiles to remediate and very few misattributed publications. So you won't have the same impact on author profiles in the Scopus system, at least in our experience. So the conclusion for this project, this work does need to be undertaken annually to ensure that all new publications are being captured and credited to FSU. So, we'll be reviewing this work each summer to make sure that all publications from the past year are being credited towards FSU. Rankings agencies change their data sources and formulas every now and then. U.S. News& and World Report switched from Web of Science to Scopus, and Leiden University has a version of their rankings using data only from open sources. Uh, and then going forward, ORCID is the long-term solution to these issues. ORCID integrations between FSU systems and ORCID, plus ORCID interoperability with all stages of the publishing process will alleviate the need for remediation in the future, ideally.
All right. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for that excellent overview of the bibliometric data remediation project and how it has at Florida State University Libraries been a way for our librarians to contribute to our university strategic goals. So transitioning now, I'm going to talk about how the bibliometric data remediation project kind of opened some doors for us to increase our efforts around ORCID adoption at Florida State University, and Jeremy has set this up nicely. So if you're not familiar with ORCID, it's a persistent identifier and identity technology for academic researchers. So what you're looking at is sort of a representation of an ORCID record. You can see that it's a structured data model that is designed to capture information about researchers' activities, and especially their published research outputs, affiliations, education, and awards. So as Jeremy mentioned, a lot of the issues that we surfaced with FSU's bibliometric record through our remediation project, sort of they indirectly highlight all of the reasons why ORCID is important. So this graphic sort of shows that we have lots of big partners in the research enterprise, publishers, funders, institutions, and discovery systems, citation indexes like Scopus and Web of Science that all collect, curate, and maintain information about researchers' activities. And yet, in spite of that, researchers are still asked, to declare to publishers and funders, for instance, when they apply for funding or submit manuscripts, they have to declare what their affiliation is. Sometimes they even need to provide information about their past activities, and they need to do that all themselves, despite the fact that there are these, big classes of organizations that have that information too. So one of the insights of ORCID is, why don't we just create a way for each of those big different classes of organizations to share this information through a researcher's ORCID record to assert each activity in a validated structured way in a person's ORCID record. This could, significantly alleviate the administrative burden for researchers of maintaining all that information themselves, and also lead to a more correct, accurate, and verified record of the researcher's activities. So you can see why our project sort of queued up an increased emphasis on ORCID. But as you may have also heard, there's a lot of other events going on out in the world that are creating momentum around ORCID as well. Notably, many of the largest U.S. federal funders have announced plans to require ORCID IDs of grantees starting next year in 2025. And this is just a screenshot of the announcement from NIH. Obviously, this is generating a lot of interest in and momentum behind ORCID as well. So some of the things that we have worked on this year are related to ORCID, where we received, some additional support in part due to the good faith that we had developed with our university's administration through the bibliometric data remediation project. The first thing I'll mention is an ORCID adoption dashboard. So we collaborated with our Office of Institutional Research, some colleagues in the libraries, and others to create this Power BI dashboard that's updated daily and shows by college and department the ORCID adoption rate of the researchers in that department. There are filters to limit the dashboard to just professors and research personnel based on job codes, or you can, view all of the personnel affiliated with a given college or department. We've presented this to our deans and senior leaders at the university as a way for them to, sort of track the extent to which their department or college is adopting ORCID. Um, Also exciting is work on an integration between our faculty activity reporting system, which is at FSU called the Faculty Expertise and Advancement System, or FEES. So we have had a one-way integration with ORCID since 2018 that enables our researchers to pull data from ORCID into FEES, but what we've been working on this year is a two-way integration to enable our faculty to push data from FEES into ORCID. And we've done a lot of work on this year and brought it very close to completion. So we had to redo our ORCID permissions granting system to be more granular and allow faculty to grant different levels of permission depending on whether or not they're comfortable with the university writing information to their ORCID records or not. But that's all done, and we've mapped all of the publication work types from our reporting system to ORCID, and are planning to launch this new integration in early spring next year. So taking a step back, just a little bit of reflection on this new focus area for us at Florida State University Libraries and how rewarding it's been so far. So since we started with that initial feasibility assessment on citation analysis and impact several years ago, this new area of focus has led to a new library faculty line with money coming from the Provost office to make that possible. Funding for Scopus and SciVal, which we did not previously have at FSU. As Jeremy mentioned, we received one-time funding for several sort of library contractors, former librarians in most cases, to help us with the bibliometric data remediation project. And then, as I just showed you, we've received a lot of additional new support for our ORCID initiatives, including, building a custom dashboard and enhancing the one system integration that we have on campus to make it more valuable to our faculty. One thing that we haven't mentioned yet is that this has also led to a number of opportunities to serve on key strategic planning committees. So Jeremy's serving on one for faculty recognition and awards. I'm serving on one related to increasing citation impact. And there are several other examples, including a newly formed ORCID committee with better representation from from partners across campus. And finally, this is sort of a nascent thing, but we've found that our work in this area is also leading to a growing recognition of the open access citation advantage. That's an effect that you may be familiar with and has been debated somewhat in the scholarly literature. But many studies have found a correlation between open access publication and higher citation counts, and even increasingly more diverse citations. This idea of citation diversity, a greater diversity of citing authors as measured by sort of geographical region and the institutions that they're affiliated with and that kind of thing. So excited for opportunities to work on that next year and hopefully take that even further as well. But this is a good overview of the benefits to our library and to the goals that we have as a library as a result of our work in this area. And with that, that brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions or want to learn more, don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Jeremy. Our email addresses are on the screen. We'd love to speak with you. Thank you very much.